Lucas, and welcome to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He is a born again Christian author, a motivational speaker, and a servant leader with over 4 decades of life experience working across small town America to global metropolises. No other than Mr. Ryan Reichert.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Welcome to Abstract Essay, Mr. Ryan, and can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, Ryan Reichert. Definitely thoroughly enjoy life today, just like you said, as a now multi book published author, certainly taken many stages across the globe as I continue to speak, and also have taken on coaching and doing retreats as well. And we established a podcast, Our Healer, Our Protector, a couple months back. Co-host that with Lisa Sander. She's a nurse of 25 years here in Minnesota. And yeah, just super excited to be on your show. Actually, once again, because we did talk about the first book, God Only Knows the Devil Comes for You, A Second Chance at Life, maybe a month or two ago. And so thank you so much for having me back.
Mr. Ryan Raker, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about your upcoming book, Icarus Effect, the high and lows of our emotions. Man, have feeling too. What inspired you to create this empowering book?
Yeah, I think it came very rapidly after the first book. I want to say, maybe 10 days after writing God Only Knows the Devil Comes for You, A Second Chance at Life. The Icarus Effect was born, came very quickly. And, for everybody out there, when it gets released, it's going to look like this. And you could get an author copy if you wanted to hit me up on any of the social media, DM me, but it really breaks down kind of how our emotions, you have the fleeting highs or the debilitating lows. And, the feelings that that's produced, out of can really control our lives if we allow it. And so I walk you through a Harvard study that can help you with those social and self skills in life that we can actually develop and improve our emotional quotient, our EQ. Our IQ is something that, we're kind of, if you're an average IQ at 100, you can maybe raise it, slightly, but not overall. And, there's a focus on one of the chapters of the power of humility and what that can do to work on your pride and ego. If you struggle in that department, previously in life, I wasn't humbled, and I went through a lot of different struggles through addiction and recovery and so on and so forth with that. Been clean and sober 20 months now. And I think a lot of that with writing the first book and now this book is kind of, taking you through that transformational side of life as one improves, where you've been and where you plan on going. And now it's giving back and serving others so that, it's kind of like the test and the testimony where we can really share, all the maybe poor choices or mistakes we've made and some of those outcomes, and know that it's not going to kill you, it's going to hurt. And through that pain, an amazing amount of good can come from it all. And, I think witnessing that just in the last, I think the first book was, we wrote it back, let's see, in January. And, the second book started writing it in February. And so, yeah, just in a short amount of time, both of them soon to be published. First one was published back in June. And so, yeah, really exciting.
Mr. Ryan, how do you define healthy emotional expressions for man in today's world?
Yeah, it doesn't, it means that like men can be vulnerable and show their emotions. I think that's the greatest thing that I've really, I served 23 years in the army. And so for me, it was always kind of suppressing, those emotions and those feelings. I could look like Captain America on the outside, but on the inside, I was like a burning city. And my family probably, unfortunately, were the ones that had to see some of that destruction. And it's one today where, as men, I think we should be able to openly talk about how we feel, and certain things that happen in our lives that can cause those emotions to create, a little bit of that chaos, but do it in such a way that you actually are able to have a conversation with other human beings. And, we have two ears and one mouth for a reason, so we should listen more than we do talk. And from that end, it's just actually, I'll go through a couple of little things that just it helps when dealing with how are you going to work on all your social skills and self skills versus some of those. And the Harvard techniques for mastering emotional intelligence, and they break it down here. It says only 10% of success comes from IQ. The other 90%, well, it actually comes from emotional intelligence, known as EQ. Harvard's research calls it the number one skill for thriving in work, relationships, and life. And so when I think about that, just like you're saying, for men with our emotions and our feelings, what can we really understand in this? And it talks about learning your emotional vocabulary, the ability to name your feeling. Instead of saying I feel bad, Harvard would suggest that you words like frustrated, overwhelmed, indifferent. Why is this important? If you name your feelings, they become 50% less intense. By doing this, you will feel better, actually. And I think it's kind of one of those where, Bruce Lee was always one to share with, the reason why we call, words have meanings. So, like, we're casting spells over ourselves if we ever talk negatively about ourselves. Like, if you say, I'm tired, or X, Y, and Z, you actually create that dynamic on top of you. So the same goes for our emotions and naming our feelings in such a way that it wouldn't cause us to feel bad, because that would be demeaning and create shame. And shame is such a dark and evil blanket that you can cast over the top of yourself. So where if you just say, instead of I feel bad, frustrated, overwhelmed, or indifferent, it would lessen that, and that pain that you could possibly have from I feel bad wouldn't be there. And then it breaks down, like, your social skills and strengthening them. Like I said, the two ears and one mouth. So listening more, and then basically focusing on 100 minutes each week, practicing eye contact, actually nodding and being engaged in another person in conversation. You ask open-ended questions, and it allows that connection with another human being to grow stronger. And then really actually mastering small talk. And they use the form technique. So F is for family. How's your family doing? O is for occupation. What keeps you busy these days? The R is recreation. Do anything fun this weekend? And the M is for message. Find something meaningful to share. And there's a few other areas that they talk about that goes in depth for us to really work on those social skills. And I noticed, like myself today too, like before I really didn't care about having a dialogue with anybody, because I probably, my humility wasn't there, and my pride and ego was out of this world. And now it is all about getting to connect with another human being, make that eye contact, smile, say please, say thank you, say excuse me, say I'm sorry, depending on what type of interactions you have with another human being, and just really having that human connection and being cognizant of how you act and react with another human being.
Why do you think societal still struggles to accept male vulnerability, Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things where, it's just like the saying, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. So it's, men are supposed to be this strong, unbreakable specimen of human existence. And, if there's anything other than that, it's a weakness. And that's just my look at it. And today, I think I believe someone as a man is stronger if they can be more vulnerable, if they can be as brutally honest as possible, and we can just share some of those gaps that we have, be it in our intelligence, and that lack, or um, you know it can be debilitating sometimes, not to have the answers. And, we end up then condemning people for their actions. And men, unfortunately, I'm certainly one that I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. And I know for me to continue to move forward in life that I have to take that lesson in the mistakes. And today I say it's either a lesson or a blessing. And normally mistakes there are a lesson, and it could be a blessing as well. And so it has a lot to do, I believe, with pain. And no one wants to endure pain, but the greatest good comes from it. And that's really, as man, us understanding how important it is for us to show that vulnerability, show like our feelings, and to communicate it, to address our, acknowledge our needs in such a way that you can actually communicate, and it creates the vulnerability, but also the trust in your partnerships, your relationships, and anything that you actually have with another human being under the sun.
What's the most damaging myth about men's emotions you want to debunk, Mr. Ryan?
Well, I used to have a saying: you have to have feelings to hurt them. And we all have feelings. Every single human being has feelings. And understanding that in a previous life, I had a silver tongue and I was extremely judgmental and very unkind with my words. And I think for everybody out there, men, women, children, whomever it is, unfortunately, you can't take back what you say. So it's better to use the two ears, one mouth, and listen. And if it doesn't need to be said, be the bigger person and don't say it, because once you do say it, uh, it can be extremely damaging, and there's nothing you can do to repair it.
How has your personal journey with emotional high and lows shaped this work?
Yeah, I think it goes all the way back to being a kid, and kind of how the communications or the lack thereof possibly were with my own father. Today I can have open conversations with them, but when I was younger, even not that far ago, probably a few years back, um, I don't know if it was out of respect, out of fear, or whatever it may be, is knowing that you can still have, I just said, don't say things that could hurt people, but also like in the dialogue of understanding that you still do need to have certain conversations when it comes to addressing, how, if you want people to be in your life, how they treat you and how that makes you feel. Establishing healthy boundaries, and sometimes, unfortunately, those boundaries mean a non-existent, or non-existing relationship, basically, where you just have to cut ties with people. And that's the hard one, right? Like those, the illusion of life, and what we believe one's potential is what we're always looking for, the potential we see in another human being. And unfortunately, actions speak louder than words, and one's performance is kind of the telltale, and not so much their potential, unfortunately.
Mr. Ryan, let's talk about the societal pressures and masculinity. What cultural systemic barriers make it hard men to express negative emotions?
Yeah, I mean, this one certainly is, I mean, for me, when I look at myself, like growing up, very, macho side of things, I'm a football player, basketball player, baseball player, track, all those things. I played rugby in college, joined the army, as an airborne ranger, did that for 23 years. And so like all those things I'm stating, and, then go to Fortune 500 America, and I'm like, it's like creating this Captain America version, right? This perfect version of every, boy, man, whatever it looks like. And, understanding then that entity can't have any chinks in their armor. They can't be dirty or broken or mistaken. And and understanding that that's the whole side of life, is to be redeemed and to have redemption, and knowing that like you can improve from that darkness. It's what's the old saying with whatever, the Batman, basically, where you're the hero so long that you become the villain or whatever, and I think that's where society struggles, is like, if you become the villain, can you ever be the hero again? And I say absolutely, like, because then there would never be any form of redemption necessary. Granted, if you become the villain in someone's story, it takes a pretty emotionally intelligent and mature person to forgive another human being. And I think that's where it really comes into play, is like understanding one's emotions and those feelings, and through that emotional intelligence create an emotional maturity for you to say, I forgive you. I might not like what you did to me, but I do forgive you, and to be able to move on from that. That doesn't mean that you have to have a relationship ever again in it, um, but it would show like your emotional maturity and your emotional intelligence to be able to get beyond that. And that's where you can really let go, and you will no longer have those feelings then that can invoke a trigger in your emotions.
Very well said, Mr. Ryan. Very well said. And as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So, looking forward to when the Icarus Effect is, publicly released. We're also working on a third book, title, kicking it around a couple different ones. So I kind of like the one day at a time theory, 6 steps to thrive every day. But it would be similar in the side of things, where it's a 90-day self development journal and practices. And then we also have a course that will be built off of those 3 books, in an app that, so looking probably September of this year. So what, a month away, maybe 6 weeks away, and having those out for people to use as well, and continue to develop and grow in our amazing life we get to live.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Ryan, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author
Yeah,
like you?
yeah, absolutely. I say, choose your hard. It's hard to be a lot of things, right? It's hard to write, it's hard to read, but you gotta have discipline over feelings and just put in the work. You have to, know that if you don't put the 30 minutes in a day to sit behind the computer and write, you'll never write your first book. And it's one of those where I always say, if I can write a book, let alone read a book, um, we all can do that. So, and I'm more than happy to help get you started. So, yeah, let's work together.
Thank you for that advice, Mr. Ryan. And what's one small habit man can adopt to become more emotionally aware?
Yeah, I think it's talk to other men, join a group that allows you to group think together and talk about your life, your feelings, your struggles, your insecurities, and continue to grow. Put in the work, and get after what you want to be in life. And I think discipline over feelings is my new mantra today, because when you don't feel like getting out of bed, well, you're not going to be able to write that first book if you don't get out of bed and start writing. So,
Which workplaces or communities are getting male emotional health right?
well, I mean, for me, it's, I definitely see it. I'm in a men's Bible study group, so that's my spirituality in life, where I see, a vast group of men, from 25 to 80, talking about their beliefs and their feelings and so on and so forth there. And a lot of folks would be like, well, that's expected, and say, well, if you have you gone to prison, and gone to see a group of men, or for women out there, I mean, it's the same. Like we all find ourselves in our struggles through that pain, where we, it heightens those feelings and the understanding of that redemption I talked about earlier. And that to me is where, we're all looking for help, another man or another woman, whomever, the groups that you're in, to, I would call it a ranger buddy from my military experience. But that's where, you need to have another human in your life that can give you a sounding board, a little bit of accountability, and you're either pulling them up or they're pulling you up. And that to me is like selecting your circles to grow in, your professional circles, your personal circles, your spiritual circles, whatever those look like. You don't want to be the smartest one in that group. You want to be, maybe in the middle of the pack, and working your way up. And then it's time to change those out every couple of years and just continue to grow. It's good to have a business coach, a life coach, a strength coach, whatever you're into. And everyone's like, well, that costs money. Well, sure, it costs money, but how successful do you want to be? I believe, for me, my higher power, if you can't handle $1,000 problems, you're certainly not going to get paid more, kind of thing in life. And so I just say, choose your heart and put in the work.
How do you help men rebuild after emotional crash, Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, I take, in my coaching and mentorship programs, through a spiritual practices daily program. It's a routine that, works through your attitude of gratitude and your meditation and prayer in the morning. It focuses on how you carry yourself, through the 6 steps of, it's really easy. You make eye contact, you smile, you say please, you say thank you say excuse me, you say I'm sorry, and then you just do that like throughout your awakened day. You write 10 things that you're grateful for. You actually pray for 3 people you do not adore. You execute your 3 daily wins, and that's a physical win, that's a creative win, and a physical win. And then from there, you actually do an after action review, similar to what we do in the military, where you look at your sustains, your improves, and then actions you need to take. And that's the most important thing I'd say for everyone listening, is if you do not take action, nothing will ever happen. And that has to do with anything you're going to do in life. And then finally, you just, before you go to bed, you do the same thing when you started the day. You reflect on those 6 steps. How did you do? Do you need to make any amends for the day? Like, so where you do need to apologize for your action and take accountability for them. And then you get ready for bed, and you pray, you meditate, and you make sure like your attitude is clear before you go to sleep. And so if you go to sleep on the right side of the bed, you'll wake up on the right side. And if you get your day started off on the right foot, you'll stay on the right foot. And you just do that one day at a time, and you'll be amazed where you end up in life.
Mr. Ryan, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 1 in fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101 love letters in its fourth season, as well as my movie 101 review and music 101 and science 101 and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Ryan, if readers take one action after your book, what should it be?
I think stick to your routines, and you'll find the ultimate success in life.
Yes, Mr. Ryan Reichert. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book as well as your upcoming book?
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, so much. Really appreciate it.
So where do people can buy your book, Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, so you can go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart.com, anywhere where they can purchase books online, and you can pre-order the second book now, and you should have it very soon.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Ryan Reichert because if you support him, for sure, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.